Stop using Duolingo, this app is better. Fair warning, this video is going to be a wild ride. You're being manipulated, yes, by the little green owl, but also by the big colorless algorithm. So I recognize that you clicked on this video, if you're not still watching the autoplay preview, because I said I promised I'd show you something better than Duolingo, and I will do that. But this is also an experiment. One with enough flaws that it would never make it past peer review, but an experiment nonetheless. By the way, click on the video already, you people watching in autoplay. Trust me, it's worth it. Okay, so here's the deal. We're basically living in the cyberpunk future we were warned about in books, and it's even weirder than we expected. So I'm making this video because YouTube's built-in AI recommended that I do so. It came up with a handful of helpful titles, including my favorite, the best language learning app in 2024, not Duolingo, which it recommended to me in, let me see here, the third month of 2025. Not only that, but it then provided me with a thumbnail ideation and an AI-generated outline of the actual video. Now here's the interesting thing. Reliance on AI is actually one of my main problems with Duolingo and one of their main limitations in the bigger languages that they actually sell. I complained a while ago about an error in French where instead of saying I as in there, all of their voices started saying Y, which is the name of the letter Y. But the LLMification of everything doesn't stop at Duolingo, and both Duolingo and YouTube have the problem of a vicious cycle of AI that swirls our algorithms as our brains slowly flush down the drain. If you're new to the channel, I'm Dr. Taylor Jones. I have a PhD in linguistics, and I love all things language and language learning. I'm also a dedicated quantitative social scientist and an expert on NLP, at least more than you are, unless you're one of the like 20 people who all studied with Dan Jarafsky. Or you are Dan Jarafsky. Hi, Dan. Today, I'm going to talk about the vicious cycle of LLM Drek and how not only are you being manipulated, see my video here, on how I and other humans do that, but also how you're being manipulated by a feedback loop of predictive text. Oh, and I'll also provide some better alternatives than Duolingo because why not? It's part of why you probably clicked after all. Before we continue, I do want to say that when I take sponsored content, because this video does have sponsored content, it's because I've evaluated, used, and like what I'm sponsoring, and that's why I only have a handful of sponsors and turn down many, many others. This, though, is not that. Without getting too far ahead of myself, there isn't an app sponsor. It's just the shell of sponsored content without sponsor or content. Come with me if you want to see just how deep the rabbit hole goes. Come with me if you want to see just how deep the rabbit hole goes. Come with me if you want to live. I'm Dr. Taylor Jones, and this is the app that will replace Duolingo in 2025. This is Language Jones. Today's video is sponsored by Lingoda. Lingoda is an online language school that offers classes in French, German, Spanish, Italian, English, and business English. They know that everyone can learn a language. All you need is the right method and a bit of motivation, which is why they have a course that is language learning built around your lifestyle, not the other way around. You can tailor your language course to your unique needs and preferences. When I tried it out for Spanish, I did a whole lesson on going to the peluqueria, which is immensely practical and not something that I've seen from a lot of other courses.
¿Y tú, Taylor, vas a la peluquería?
Sí, pero hace un buen tiempo que no voy.
Muy bien.
Quiero ir mañana.
Pues aquí, si vas con alguien que habla español, vas a estudiar cómo negociar, cómo desenvolverte en español.
And with the smallest class sizes in the market, you'll always have time to practice speaking. Every class is led by highly qualified, dedicated, native-level teachers who provide an interactive and personalized experience. You'll receive guidance and feedback that helps you track your progress and achieve your language goals, both from the teachers and from their self-learning and practice tools like Vocabulary Trainer and Lingo Bites. The tools help reinforce your skills between live lessons. You can use the Flex Plan for self-paced study or the Sprint, a 2-month challenge to accelerate your language learning journey. Take classes daily or every second day to make fast progress, stay motivated, and earn a big reward in the end. 50% cash back or more free classes. I did a Sprint recently in French and I was so blown away by it, I made an entire video. I'll link to that at the end. And honestly, some of my friends and families tried Lingoda and they can't stop calling and texting me to tell me how much they're enjoying it. I get it. I told you. If you're learning one of these 5 languages and you'd like to try Lingoda, click on my link in the description or use my code 2025Jones for 20 euros or equivalent off any language learning course. Now back to the video. I'm going to stop saying the name of the platform because it can actually do keyword optimization and algorithmic shenanigans with the inferred scripts of your videos based on its own speech-to-text model. I switch languages so often in my videos and have such an idiosyncratic accent and preposterously loquacious vocabulary that I have no idea what it infers from any of my videos. But anyway, I'll call it YT. As opposed to Duolingo, which I could call Greenie. But then I wouldn't be saying Duolingo as many times in this video. You know how people joke about hiding from Duolingo's green owl? Well, I'm literally doing that from the app that isn't Duolingo right now because it can read your thoughts. Well, not really, but it can read your words, and that's basically the same if you externalize your thoughts verbally. So Whitey literally generated an entire outline for a video about an app to replace Duolingo. And it's a pretty good outline, all things considered. It hits all the main points that a lot of successful videos either complaining about Duolingo, about alternate apps, or both hit. It starts strong with the problem with Duolingo. The problem with Duolingo. Duolingo's limitations. Gamification focus. Lack of real-world conversation practice. Repetitive content. These are accurate and valid complaints. There are also common complaints from language learners. Lack of depth. Not suitable for serious learners. Now, I don't know if I'd agree with that necessarily. I've gotten a lot out of Duolingo, even for languages like French, and especially for languages that benefit from benign neglect, like Hebrew. But it's a common complaint, whether I agree with it or not, which you'll see over and over and over again over at our Duolingo on Reddit. And lastly, audience connection. I've been there, tired of Duolingo's limitations. Weirdly, much like some new AI sentences in Duolingo, this last one is not fully grammatical, or at least not natural. So far, so good. I see why people use LLMs as a starting point for writing things. I disagree with that practice, and the only time I ever tried using one, I ended up having to write more than I otherwise would to massage a factually incorrect, poorly organized script into something remotely usable, and even then, it sounded awkward, clunky, and unlike me. Because I'm not awkward and clunky, I'm a real boy. We're not lions, we're people. Duolingo sentence or quote that lives in my head rent-free. Leave me a comment if you know where it's from. Next, we get to why this app is different. Why this app is different. Focus on real-world conversation practice. Introduce the app's unique features that emphasize conversation. Great, so here I should introduce something that emphasizes conversation. In fact, there's a few sponsors I have that insist in their materials that I do just that, often with their AI conversation partner. I'm not against those. I use them, hence my endorsement of those apps. But this is weird. Leave me a comment if you can put your finger on why this is weird already. Oh, and if you do like actual real-world conversation, you can still click my link in description for something that's not an app. Next is comprehensive approach to language learning. Highlight the app's features for grammar, vocabulary, and pronunciation. Okay, so this is basically everything that you could possibly want, because anybody learning any language will need grammar, vocabulary, and pronunciation. Those are like the things that learning a language is. Lastly, personalized learning path. Personalized learning path. Explain how the app tailors to individual needs and learning styles. This one's kind of meta because Duolingo is the #1 app on the market that uses what they call a path. But fine, personalized learning. So hot right now. Next, we get to another section helpfully written for me called App Features and Demo. Demonstration of app interface and features. Showcase the app in action, highlighting key elements. So this is great. Now, if you didn't catch what was wrong before, do you see it now? Which app is the best app on the market poised to replace Duolingo? That's a question a lot of people ask, a lot of people search for, and there's very high interest in. So I have this helpful LLM outline. But what's the answer? Turns out, much like Greenie, Whitey doesn't know and doesn't care. The entire point of the script is to get you to engage with their lesson, not teach you a language. The content is secondary. The medium is the message. It continues, walk through the learning experience. Show a sample lesson and how the app facilitates conversation practice. So of course, this is an incredible user interface. They provide the hardware on an ongoing basis, and you just manually engage the conversation partner and then talk for as long as you want. Check out this real French conversation I had after just 10 minutes of preparation. Bonjour. Bonjour. Then there's the emphasis on real-world application. Emphasis on real-world application. Demonstrate how the app helps with everyday communication scenarios. This is one skill I left out of my video on language learning for introverts, shy people, and those with anxiety. You can again manually engage the app and use this technique to communicate in your target language in a variety of real-world scenarios. Quiero un cortadito, por favor. But that's not all. There's even more to this, which is totally crazy. And don't worry, I will provide you with some real alternatives at the end of the video. But do you see how this system works? Does this sound like apps you may have already used? Benefits of using the app. Improved fluency and confidence. Highlight the app's potential to boost fluency and conversational skills. This is reasonable because basically any study will improve fluency and confidence if that study isn't just passive reading. And even then, people are a big fan of that for boosting fluency and confidence. So it's marketing fluff anybody can say about basically anything. Increased engagement and motivation. Show how the app's unique approach keeps learners motivated. This is where their feature Horseplay really shines. Affordable and accessible. Discuss the app's pricing model and accessibility compared to other options. This app is paid, but it's a reasonable price. I got the lifetime membership for under $25, link in description. And you can do the free version, which is basically just the same but lacks a few of the paid features. Lastly, there's a call to action and conclusion. Encourage viewers to try the app. Offer the users a free trial or discount code. Now, I do have a real sponsor with a real code in this video, and I really like them, so don't make me regret showing you how the Whitey sausage is made. Link in description. Discount code is 2025 Jones. Then there's summarize the key benefits and why this app stands out. And finally, end with a positive and encouraging message. Inspire viewers to take action and reach their language learning goals. I generally try to do this because it's just a best practice. You should take action, and many things that you could do will help you along the way. But let's think about this. I had an entire video's worth of content about an alternative to Duolingo, the best app that's going to blow Duolingo out of the water in 2025 or 2024, depending on which title I choose. This is because Duolingo is popular and people search for it and search for alternatives. It's the biggest market share. In fact, it's so big that Evan Ettinger can basically crank out a very good video on Duolingo anytime his channel isn't doing well. Am I doing that right now? You've seen his Duolingo videos, but do you even know what his channel's actually about? Do you even know what my channel's actually about? It's about language and linguistics and language learning, by the way. If you've watched this far, here's as good a time as any to let you know that my colleagues and I are launching not one, but 2 brand new channels, and I might have a third in the works. If you're interested in culture, communication, and conflict, definitely check out C-Lab from Culture Point. That's Culture Like a Boss, a podcast where I'm in conversation with Mr. Christopher Hall at Culture Point, and the Culture Point Effect, where we explain everything that affects leadership and performance, doing deep dives on culture, communication, conflict, and more. There's a lot of crossover material I've saved for that channel, including tons on linguistic pragmatics and communication styles. I'll link it at the end. It'd mean a lot if you checked out the channel and maybe subscribed and left a comment. Just like I'm sure you'll do here. So I promised I'd actually give some good alternatives to Duolingo, and I'll do that in 2 seconds. I just really want to hammer home how much of what you watch and engage with may be content creators, scare quotes very much intended, just regurgitating algorithmically generated dreck that itself comes from an LLM likely trained on, well, more of the same. It's just turtles all the way down. The experiment here was to see if discussing it while simultaneously saying all the keywords provided in relation to a high level of interest will do well on my channel. It's not a valid experiment for like 9/11 reasons. I'm telling you about it. I don't have a control. I'm not just doing the recommended video without discussing it in a meta video, but I'm really curious how this does, and I'll share the results on my channel. So be sure to subscribe so you see the graphs when they're ready. Now, finally, some suggestions for alternatives to just sitting on the Duolingo throne and grinding out a lesson. First, for many languages, there's an overabundance of options. For French, German, Spanish, and Italian, you already know my recommendation for how to learn them. Click my link in description. But if you want to go it alone instead of, with a class, I definitely recommend watching my video on the book Fluent Forever. I use those approaches with Lingoda, with apps, and even when I am, gasp, using Duolingo. If it's Hebrew specifically, I'll just drop a little plug. I'm just about halfway done with my ultimate unofficial companion to Duolingo, which I will share with a new patron tier once it's ready. I've tried other books and resources, and there's just not a lot of great stuff out there. So I hope to give all the grammar explanations, vocabulary, and even a skosh of cultural knowledge to make Duolingo actually usable, assuming they don't replace everything with AI between now and when I finish. Even then, I can probably still share what I did. Without rehashing everything in all of my other videos, the basic idea is that there's lots of different things that could be right from you, from apps to video on demand services to online language schools to language exchanges to, textbooks or MP3s or CDs or cassette tapes. The key is that you want to be consistent and set aside time to achieve a goal. That textbook, finish it in like 3 months. You'll need some way to externalize your practice of remembering and forgetting. Some people use Anki for vocabulary, some just use extensive reading. I'll be making a video about Loot for that approach pretty soon. Some do journaling, but the point is that an app alone won't solve language learning for you. It's all in how you use it. The best way to do so is intentionally. This means actively working to smartly encode new information and practicing retrieval and use frequently, preferably in situations that mimic the ideal use case. You want to speak German? Then you need something where you're actually practicing remembering words, putting them together, and saying them. Should you translate? Not translate? Use mnemonics or only use correct etymological histories and connections within your target language? I'm in the mindset that it really doesn't matter so long as it's effective. If you use mnemonics that are completely bonkers, but you remember the words and can use them correctly, seems effective to me. So as you're evaluating any app or other approach, you should be asking yourself how many new words or grammatical structures you're actually seeing in a study session, a day, a week, a month, and how much reinforcement you get of those concepts as you continue. Is it gamification that's just dragging out how long you spend on the app without giving you anything to show for it? It shouldn't be. Honestly, a decent vocabulary, depending on how you count words, is like 30 to 40,000 words. How many can you learn in a day? How many can you review in a day? How many days will it take to get to 40K at that pace? If you're learning 3 words in a day with Duolingo and then not reviewing them enough to be able to use them, you're learning, best case scenario, almost 3 words. That's a sad ROI. So in evaluating anything, how much content is there? How does it relate to your desired use case or real-world content? How easily can you integrate it into a routine? And how much material will you understand and retain and learn in a given period of time? And how do you track any of that? My sponsored content, I have like 4 sponsors, generally fits the bill for all of these things. That's why I take the sponsorships. But you can also go it alone in a ton of different ways, which I have lots of videos on. I told you this was going to be a weird one. Until next time, happy learning, and watch out for LLM-generated AI garbage with the form of content, but no content in your content. You're still here? It's over.